So the name of this panel is The Future of Vinyl. It's a miracle because it wasn't that many years ago when everybody said there was no future for vinyl. So we've had 20 years of growth, I would say, in vinyl, certainly over the last 10 years especially. So let me introduce the panel to you. Starting on my left is Chad Kassem, who, Chad is a guy that believed in this as I did, and Chad started out selling used records in a milk crate, and now he's a mogul with a pressing plant and a recording studio and a reissue label, and he does vinyl, SACDs, and high-res files, and now he's doing tape, real tape reissues, not phony ones where they take a SACD and make a tape of it. He's doing that, and he's a purist about what he does. And Josh Bizar here works for Music Direct, which owns Mobile Fidelity, and they are believers in this. They believed in this back when there was nothing. They resurrected the Mobile Fidelity record label, and they're doing well. Chad's doing well. I mean, you can't tell by what they're wearing because they don't dress well. But there's plenty of money there. Don't kid yourself. And they're doing well, which is fantastic. And then over here, Mat Weisfeld, whose father, Harry Weisfeld, started VPI Turntables. I've known Harry Weisfeld since I got into this in the 80s. And I've known Matt since he was a tadpole. And, there was a time when Matt wanted nothing to do with his father's business. It was like the lamest thing. He just makes turntables. Then, now it's kind of a hip thing. Now he's the president of the company. And there's some other people in this business that we can talk about who also are the children of well-known designers of things. And they also have it in their head. They have the bug for it, and they have the talent for it. Because Matt has put together some turntables. The Prime, that was your first, he came up with the idea, put the thing together, and it's a great turntable that he was involved with. And now he's running the show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but he is. So that's our panel, and I want to talk about this from every side of the business. And I would like to let's start on the hardware side for just a few minutes. When you guys also are involved in that hardware side, both selling it, and you have your own turntable brand that's supposed to appear at some
Certainly.
point. So we can talk about it. So on the hardware side, where is this business going to go in terms of turntable design, manufacturing, and materials being used to make turntables? You should start.
Sure. Well, overall with VPI, the first thing we've done is streamlined, because for the growing audience, too many choices. The customers changed from when my dad was making these tables. When I came in, we had 22 product SKUs. Way too confusing. The growing audiophile, they walk in and they see 22. Their first thought is, oh crap, you know what? This digital seems easier. I hit a button and I'm done. But just in general, as far as development, we are going for more, well, first off, turntables that fit into your apartment. Respecting the fact that not everybody has a house that they can build just for the size of their turntable. Using material, for us, we do a substantial amount in America, well, made in America, and it's I shouldn't say substantial, it's really, we're in the high 90s, and we do that to stay true to the design, the American worker, but I'm digressing a little bit. With the streamlining of the product, we're trying to have more straightforward price points, so that it's easy to see good, better, best. Getting to that point where you don't have to be an engineer, and there's a lot of phenomenal engineers that are sitting in this audience, but the new music lover, they just think it's really cool, or it's a new experience, it's a community type thing. So we're trying to, for our turntable design, a lot of education, setup videos, an intuitive design of, well, I have no idea what I'm doing. How do I take it out of the box and I plug it in? This final stuff isn't that bad.
So, Josh, you guys decided you were going to have a couple of turntables.
That's correct.
And where does that stand at this point in time?
We're very close. We set up a manufacturing facility in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're putting the parts together. We'll probably have a turntable in the next few months.
And the machining is.
But it's just a very small part of what we're doing with Mobile Fidelity.
Yeah.
We're trying to turn the brand into all the Mobile Fidelity customers for the last 20 years have been calling us and asking, what cartridge should I use? What phono preamp should I use?
They should be coming to me, but they go to you.
Well, you don't take the calls from customers.
I know, I just do the emails.
It would be much easier if you would just talk to them. And we've, for a long time, wanted to be able to direct them to Mobile Fidelity products. They're Mobile Fidelity customers, and I think telling a story about going from the studio into your listening room and being able to handle the entire signal path from the LP or the SACD or whatever the source material is all the way through to whatever loudspeakers you're using is a very cool story to tell, and there are a lot of Mobile Fidelity fans out there that seem very excited about the concept. So none of these products are available yet today, but we're working very hard to make sure that for a reasonable amount of money, you're going to be able to get a great cartridge, a great affordable phono stage, a very nice affordable turntable, and we'll see where it goes from there. We have a lot of products under development, like integrated amplifiers and loudspeakers, and we want to bring people closer to the music that we make in the studio.
And you have people on staff who can put a cartridge in a turntable and get it out to the customer so it's ready. And how has turntable business been over the last?
Well, that I can, switch my hat over to my
Yeah.
Music Direct hat, because we sell an unbelievable amount of analog equipment, and we get to talk to more of you guys than I would bet anybody. It's been so unbelievable. For me personally, it's been 18 years. I don't have the experience these gentlemen have, and honestly, I wouldn't be doing what I am doing today if it wasn't for these people on the stage up here. I was actually one of Chad's customers before I even was in this industry. So, and I've been reading Michael longer than I've worked in this industry as well. So aside from that,
So you see an upward turntable sales are strong.
it's been so unbelievable to see over the past 15 years, and it's not just young kids, and it's not just audiophiles, and it's not just people that are retired and have already sent their kids to college and they're finally empty nesters and they look in their attic and they want to pull their 3 boxes of records out. People are coming from every walk of life, and it's been unstoppable.
And they love it. They
Oh, it's the most fun thing that I get to do is that call that comes back 2 weeks after a guy gets his turntable, and hearing him how excited they are, it really makes what we do very special.
Do you ever get disappointed customers? I tried this, I didn't like it.
Well,
It happens, I'm
it
sure.
happens, of course. I mean, that's why we have a return policy, and maybe a turntable isn't for everyone. But what I can tell you is in this world where a music collection is in a box next to your computer and people are like, I've got 18,000 songs. Music is an art form, like theater or film or sculpture or painting. It's a real art form. And when you lose that, you lose the whole reason why these artists that we all love are making these records. And whether it's young kids getting into vinyl or older people getting into vinyl, they're all doing it because they love music. And it doesn't seem like there's that many young people in here right now. No offense to you guys, but you all look... we all grew up putting a record on. There's one.
But that's the interesting thing. There's a disconnect between the audiophile community and the vinyl community to a certain degree. There's an opportunity to get those people here. We have to do a better job of doing that.
Well, the industry has failed the public. There's no doubt. And it's become such a small industry that, we don't have the money that it would take to do major ad campaigns or television campaigns. It's unfortunate. We all should be working together.
Publicity without spending money on advertising is a way to promote it. But before we go to Chad, just your business is how's it going?
It's been great. Actually, it's funny that Josh mentions that because I've been dancing around it all weekend, but we're in the process in the next few weeks to pretty much launch exactly that, of having advertisements in the New York Times and having in all sorts of publications, PBS, all sorts of things that are not usual.
And that's because turntable business is good now.
Yes.
And what's the mix of turntables in terms of price points?
We've been transitioning to a steadier price point of having a 1,500, 2,200, 4,000, 6,000, so that there's the different price jumps. So that you don't have that oh, is this gonna be better? What do I do? That way that you have that jump from the good, better, best standpoint, and feel it's something that you're really valuing going forward with your growth with vinyl love.
So Chad, you basically have Chad Stelly who does your setups and he's your turntable guy, but you must monitor what's going on in the turntable business of what you sell, and what do you see?
Well, I mean, people ask all the time, like, did I see the growth coming and all this? I mean, we've always had like the core audiophiles that really never went away buying vinyl or turntables. I mean, the guys that supported us from the beginning, and they're still supporting. And they're most people in this room and the guys that, and they bought it back in '86. They've been buying ever since. Some of them got away from music for a while and did other things, and now they're back into it. But you can see that since it's becoming more popular, that some of those guys that drifted away are coming back. So we really mostly sell to the same, not the kids or the young people. It's mostly, and that's why, people will ask, oh, I'm worried, like you read about these naysayers, oh, it's just a fad and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, listen, it's always been growing since I started, so I'm not worried. I mean, even if all the kids that are buying it, if it's a fad to them, they're not supporting us too much anyway, you know what I mean? Like, as long as it's just always been growing.
Yeah.
And our customers are, most of them aren't, brand new customers. They've supported us the whole time. So, but it is really
your
cool.
turntable business. I'm not talking about records. Your turntable business.
Well, it's the same. It's
Yeah.
you sell a lot of records, you sell a lot of turntables. I mean, we sell a lot of turntables. It's always grown. So some of the fun things that I was thinking about while you were talking is like my little girl. She's gonna turn 10, but she liked to play records. We got the school player out, man, and at school they talk about records. And she brings records to school, and she's proud that her dad makes records, and the teachers and everybody really like it. And they talk about records, and so it's almost like the children know more about records now. I mean, even the young kids. I mean, like young, know about records and talk about it, and they like playing them. They like talking about them, and I see it. And that's pretty cool. And we sell more turntables. We
What's the mix of what what are the price points of what you?
I mean, everything from the bottom to the $50,000 SME. But I'd say most of it's like the VPI Classic or something like $3,000 or $4,000 turntable. And
Yeah,
not
that's
just
that's a good. You get good performance at that price point.
Yeah, we think so. We always try to recommend what we feel is a good value. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and we try not to let people. We try to keep them from making mistakes. Sometimes we feel it's more of a crime to undersell them than oversell them. Because they'll be upgrading soon. You might as well skip that step.
Right, I
to have
agree.
to sell. Wish you had bought the better one. I mean,
I'm sorry we didn't have a cartridge manufacturer here to talk to you about.
there's one in the audience.
Who's here?
Autophon.
Ah,
Hi, D.
hey guys. So, some of you don't know this, but there was the great boron shortage of the past couple of years. And they were involved in that. The Autophon was involved in that. There was a shortage of boron because, for whatever reasons, now it seems they seem to have brought it back for the people that want to use it. They're using you're using sapphire now, right?
Just one of them was changed. The Quintet Black was sapphire. We still use boron for higher-end cartridge.
But it was very dire for a while. And I was talking to cartridge manufacturers, and what ended up happening to some of them in Japan is they ended up getting it sourced from a supply that was held by one of the German cartridge manufacturers who was nice enough to lend the boron, to sell them the boron to make their cartridges. And that was under the radar. You didn't hear about that. But now apparently they discovered an American military supplier, and how big do these pipes have to be? Oh, they're, but they're okay now. Everything that scare has been solved. So let's talk about the vinyl side of this now, because there's been, anybody see the story that came out? The RIAA announced there was a 9% drop in the shipments of vinyl. It's all over now for vinyl. Did anybody see that story?
Yes.
It's the stupidest, idiotic story, but it got a lot of traction because what happened was shipments of vinyl from the wholesale side to the retail side dropped 9% in the second quarter of 2016. And the headlines were, it's all over for vinyl, the vinyl resurgence is finished. It turned out that the financial amount of the drop was like 6%, which is a minuscule thing. Sales of vinyl records in the first quarter of 2016 were 54% greater than the previous year. So there was this giant rise the first quarter, and then a drop in the second
Tiny
quarter,
dip.
a tiny drop. And the fact of the matter is the RIAA and Nielsen SoundScan only tracks a fraction of the sales. Do they track what you sell or what you sell?
We turn down about 90% of all orders that come to our pressing plant. We're not taking new orders. It's been for a year. We turn down. So, I mean, really, it's really,
I gotta take this one. You guys keep talking.
well, must be important.
We feel,
We're turning down 90% of all orders. Vinyl's taking a nosedive? I don't think so. We finally started opening up a few more orders. I mean,
And talk about how long the wait is. I mean, how backed up is the plant?
well, finally, since we've been turning down orders for so long, we're getting back to where we can do things a little bit quicker. So I'm not quite sure our turnaround, it's a lot better than it was, but, it could be anywhere from a month to 6 months, but.
So that's
Yeah.
we have to talk about the
And that's
pressing
really-
plant side of things,
yeah.
because it was a big problem. It currently is still a big problem because the demand last year, I got an Excel spreadsheet from somebody in the pressing side of this world, who gave me a list of all of what the pressing plants pressed last year in 2015, and it was 80 million records were pressed. Now that includes rejects that would get rejected, except from the pressing plants that don't reject records in Nashville, but that's another story. And they're going to be mad at me, but they hate me anyway, so it doesn't matter. It also includes, let's say, a box set of 10 records. That really should be counted as one record. So let's take the 80 million and drop it by 20 million. It's still 60 million records. And yet, the sales figures that are given to us by Nielsen SoundScan and the other people, it's a fraction of what's really being sold. But we do have a supply problem, a pressing plant problem, but there are things being done. There are more pressing plants that are going to open next year. There's one in Virginia that's going to open that's got a lot of presses. And Third Man Records, Jack White's company, is going to open a pressing plant in Detroit with the new built presses from Germany. And there are other things happening. There's a new pressing machines being made in Italy that I saw. They break every week, but they're
Canada
really
has
good.
new
No, I'm
ones?
just kidding.
There's
They
new
look good,
Canadian
though.
presses.
Did you see those presses? They look
No,
really
I'm
good.
just kidding.
We're just joking. We're joking. That look really nice. And then there's a pressing company in Canada that's coming out with a new press. So the supply problem will be solved over time. It's not, you read this dire stories, well, there are no new presses being made, and we've reached the saturation point of the pressing plants and their capacity, so it's gone only this far. There's no limit to what can happen. I mean, how big this is going to get, we don't know, but there's no limit, from what I can see, to pressing capacity. I think the biggest issue is finding people who have the skills, as Chad found out, opening a pressing plant. This is an art as much as it's a science, and new people have to be taught how to do this. It's not an automated thing, so I think that's an issue that has to be
It's easy
done.
to make a record. It's difficult to make a great record.
Yeah, really difficult.
We say it's easy to make a good record. It's hard to make them all good.
That's another, yeah. And then there are consumers that don't understand this, and they expect every record they buy to be perfect. And there's
Well, when you were talking about, if you call our pressing plant and ask how many we made, we don't give you the number of the defective that we pulled out.
Right.
The number we give you is what we sold.
right.
and some customers will complain, well, I sent you 1,000 labels and you made 800 records, and where's the rest of our labels? I'm like, you complain about losing 200 labels. We pull those records out because they weren't perfect to keep you from having defective records. The other pressing plant would have shoved them in there. So now who owes who labels?
Right. There are a lot of people getting into this who want to sell records and want to make, put their music on vinyl that don't understand any of what goes on, and they expect instant gratification and perfection. So that's part of the problem also that we have to deal with. The other problem is I got asked by Barnes & Noble, so I'm sure this is your enemy, but that's okay.
Why would
Not
they be
mine,
our
I mean.
enemy?
If they sell in
They sell.
vinyl,
So,
that's good.
Barnes &
Amen.
Noble sells records, and I didn't know how many records they sold. So they had a record store day, a Barnes & Noble vinyl day in August, and someone from one of the companies that puts the records in the stores at Barnes & Noble asked me if I would speak about vinyl at my local Barnes & Noble. So I did, and they liked it so much they invited me to talk to the managers of all the Barnes & Noble stores. They had a convention in Orlando 2 weeks ago, and I went down there, and the first thing I learned was a lot of these managers, they're selling records, but they have no idea why records are selling. They just don't get it. First of all, they think it's stupid. They say, I'm happy to sell the records because it's money, but I don't get. I had to explain to them everything that you heard here, why this is happening. And the other thing I found out was how many records they're selling, which I'm not allowed to discuss with you, but they're selling a lot of records. A lot of records are going out of Barnes & Noble, an awful lot of records.
And I've sat down with people at Warner Brothers, Sony, Universal. They're all saying that the next 5-year projection they have is just unbelievable. Like they think that it's going to continue and continue and continue, and they're putting money behind it. They're obviously going through their back catalogs and putting everything out on vinyl.
And not doing a lot of it as well as they should. Some of it is being done as well as it can be done, but some of it's just to get it out the door, which is annoying, and that's going to kind of ruin it when they put out bad reissues. That could be done from analog tape when they have it, but they don't. They do it from digital.
I like to say that kids today are running around like wearing ticks and pops around their neck like a badge of honor, and they shouldn't be. Because
Right.
if you make a record correctly, it shouldn't sound like that.
All right, that's the stupidest thing. So I like records because the ticks and pops give it personality. No.
It doesn't.
It's stupid. Or they say I like records because they have warmth. Records don't have warmth. They should have a fundamental correct harmonic structure that you don't get from that other.
A level of musicality, elevated level of musicality.
Yeah, I mean, I think, has anybody here heard, I don't want to change the subject too much, but MQA, have you heard of MQA? This is okay. So the first time I heard MQA, Bob Stewart played a CD, and it sounded like a CD. There was no sense of space. I couldn't see a picture I could see. Then he had the same music with the digital filtering corrected for the time domain errors that records don't have the problem with that. And all of a sudden, it began to sound like what a good record sounds like. So, everything that any of us who didn't like CDs didn't like about it, we were correct. There was a problem that they didn't want to address or discuss, which had to do with the time domain issues in the filters. So, meanwhile, we've got all these records that don't have that problem at all, so it's fantastic. Just a sidelight. Okay, so the pressing plants.
Did anyone have any interesting questions?
Yeah, questions. And we'll repeat the question so everybody can hear it.
Why is it hard to make a consistently good record?
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot different temperatures. I mean, the temperature outside could be one thing, and then your water has to be a certain temperature, and
Humidity.
yeah, all the the weather, the inside, the outside, the water, you got to make steam. The vinyl changes a bit. You got different operators pressing pressing the records.
Putting the stamper into the die and having it slip a little bit sometimes. I mean,
Or some people sending you crappy stampers to begin with, or crappy metal parts. I mean, there's just a million things that it's so hard that you would never believe.
Let's start from the beginning of the process. So first, someone's cutting a lacquer. A lot of things can go wrong there. First of all, someone's making a lacquer. Something can go very wrong in the manufacturing of the lacquer itself. So there used to be more than two plants that made lacquers. There was Transco in New Jersey, and then there was Apollo in California. So Apollo bought Transco. So even though they're different formulations and they both have separate lines, they're both coming out of the same place. So the lacquer has to be good. Then somebody's cutting the lacquer. There are guys that really know how to cut lacquers. We know the guys, Bernie and Kevin. There were some guys that are just learning it. They don't do a good job. Then the lacquer has to get to the plating plant, and the plating is critical to the whole thing. If the plating isn't done correctly, you're never going to get a good record. Then
There's only a few good platers in the world.
That's right.
And then they can make a mistake.
Just imagine that they make a mistake, and then you start pressing the records, and the records are bad. Then you got to scrap the whole thing and start over again. And then after they plate the record, they have to process the plated metal to make it into a stamper. So like they have to make a hole in that piece of metal, and it's not done scientifically really. There's a machine. They put it on a machine. There's a crosshair, and they line it up and punch a hole. And then there are other issues taking that and making that into the record that has the spindle hole that you play, because that's not the same size hole as the hole that's in the stamper before it gets into the. There's a whole lot of things.
And you got humans involved.
That's the worst part.
You know what I'm saying?
And it's really a mechanical process. When you make a CD, you're just putting zeros and ones on a disc, and you can make them like pushing 100 copies on a copier. But you're literally manufacturing, smushing a ball of vinyl each record that's made. It's not a perfect medium.
And CDs are made in a clean room. Records are made in a dirty room. I mean,
It's,
Well,
there's different temperatures, and if it, we're the first people to put programmable logic controllers on a press. So we can tell exactly what temperature the dies are. Nobody's ever did that before. These presses were made probably in 1970. They've run for 24 years, for 24 hours. We've taken them, we've stripped them down to the bare, and then built them back up, putting all the latest digital controls where you can tell exactly what the temperatures are. And it's still, it's still not perfect. And then, they can warp depending on the vinyl, depending on the temperature.
how about the hydraulics? I mean, forever until he did what he did to his presses, the hydraulics are on the press. So the whole press is shaking like this while you're trying to press a record that's supposed to be tiny little grooves, and the whole thing is going like that. And so after all these years of making records, they took the hydraulics off the press and put it next to the press.
Right, it's just amazing that, I'm no genius, but you would thought that somebody before me would have, it wasn't my idea, but somebody that was working for me, that, there's a hydraulics it's welded, connected to the main press, and that thing is, like you said, is vibrating. Well, if you're playing a record and I go vibrate your stand while the record's playing, I mean, it's the same thing. The press is making your record, why have it vibrate? So we cut it off, we put it far away, and we put it on industrial pucks, almost like tiptoes, or what are the things we call for the...
Sorbethane.
It's big sorbethane, almost like what you do for a turntable, but industrial ones. And we put the press on that too. So there's no vibration at all. I mean, we did about 5 innovative things that's never happened, but that don't mean our records are going to be perfect every time. I mean, it's so hard that, Don at RTI, the probably one of the best pressing plants in the world, told me, he goes, good luck, he goes, don't do it. Don't do it. As a friend, don't do it. And I didn't listen, and everything he said was true, and he just emailed me or texted me before I came in here. We're friends, we're not competitors. Like I'm going to that old cello with him, and he sends his best man to help us with our presses. And
yeah, everybody's in it. There's a tremendous community involved in this. Everybody's in it together, and there's more than enough business for everybody right now. And I think it's going to continue.
And we tell people, hey man, if you want a good quality record, we're too busy. Go to RTI, and so it's real nice that we have that relationship with Don.
And to answer your question even further, it's not a new phenomenon that every record isn't perfect. Every record that's ever been made, there were bad pressings of every record that you could find in a used record store.
Yeah,
It's never been a perfect
I went to
medium.
Sam Goody's when I was a kid. I took two buses and 2 trains to get there. I bought a modern jazz quartet record. I brought it home. It was. I said, I got to return this. So I took the thing all the way back in, took the subway and the bus. Gave me a replacement copy. Same thing. Every record in that run that they had at Sam Goody was bad like that because that's how it got pressed.
And what's amazing is how many records they actually made back then. Because as Chad can probably tell you, his orders are 2,500 records, 3,000 records, maybe sometimes even 1,000 records. How they made enough records for Led Zeppelin 4's release ever? I mean, how did it ever happen? How did they make 3 million copies and have them available on December 22nd? I mean, I can't even comprehend how that ever even happened. There must have been a time in America where you could throw a golf ball in any direction and hit a record pressing plant.
Yeah, probably. So there's a very funny story. Does anybody here know record industry in the Netherlands? So it's a big commercial record pressing plant, and that was Sony's pressing plant forever. So in the early 90s, they decided that records were going to go away and they better close this pressing plant. And they set about saying, well, how much is the building worth, and how much will it cost us to get this crap out of this building so we can sell the building? Because there are boilers, the infrastructure of a pressing plant. And this is a pressing plant with like 37 presses. It's a big commercial pressing plant. And so they were setting about doing that, and this guy named Ton Vermeulen heard about it, and he's one of us. So he went over to Sony. He said, listen, I'll give you what the building is worth, and I'll take care of cleaning all this crap out of here for you. And the Sony executives were like, okay, make the deal. So he bought the pressing plant for the cost of the building, and basically he got a free pressing plant. And now he's pressing 7 days a week, three cycles a day, and doing very, very well because he saw what. So it's just one of these great stories. There's a lot of these great stories all over the world. You could go to GZ, you could go to Optimal, you could go to what's the other one? Come on, what's the one in Germany? Deepol's Germany, where they make
Palace.
Palace. All these guys, same thing. They're all in the same boat. They kept it going, and they're all doing great now.
And you never know when someone's going to pull a tarp off something in the back of a factory and find 20 presses.
That,
Question, if I may, to the gentleman. Chad, you guys explained what the process is and how there's artistry that is very limited to a few known skilled individuals. Is the industry looking at that and putting apprenticeships together to train people to continue this? Is there a self-investment is the industry looking at itself?
That's a really good question. It would take an organization of all the people in this business to do that, and I'm not sure that organization.
You want to press some records?
Come on, we'll teach you.
Hey, listen, let me tell
an
you.
intern position over there.
Let me tell you. We took a thermometer in the pressing plant during July, and you know what happened to it? It went to the top and exploded. So we don't know how hot it was in there. It went to the top and exploded. That's not the boiler room.
That's even hotter. The boiler.
Oh, the boiler room in the winter is probably 130 degrees in the wintertime. So it's a hard job. You're right. We should be training people and getting, but we can't afford to pay that much money, to really train somebody as a.
Let's talk about why records cost what they cost, because there's a lot of complaining about why records are so expensive. But the first thing is, if you go back to what records cost in the 60s and correct it for inflation.
Yeah,
it's
inflation
not that
calculator.
more.
It's real. Well, you look at the presses. Okay, I have an invoice from 1973. A press was $53,000. $53,000 in 1973 was probably about $150 now.
At least.
And so, right now they're talking about presses being 200, and people go, "Wow, they can't believe it." Well, lathes were like $250,000 in the 70s and 60s,
Yep.
and so it's just crazy. But one thing I wanted to say about, we read all these articles about vinyl, the surge, and we love reading it, and it's growing, but they go by the sound scan, which is an absolute joke. And the only way is the way Fremer does it, when he calls the pressing plant and they give him the number, and then he adds all that up, and he probably misses maybe 5, 10 pressing plant, and but that's the number. All this sound scan is and then they use these percentages, and it's just like, give me, it just makes me want to.
Did you see the study?
None of the records Chad sells or that we sell are scanned.
Yeah, sound scan. Yeah, it's just basically maybe Sam, whatever this Barnes and Noble, might be scanning.
And probably whatever comes out of Amazon probably also gets added to that. But none of the things that you guys are selling is added.
I mean, I'd like to see the number you came up with versus the number they came up. I bet you, if I had to guess, there was 80. They probably only accounted for 20% of what was really sold.
Well, I know this. Nielsen's sound scan is only in America. Only count. So their number last year was 11 million records. I know.
We made almost 1.5 million.
Chad's plant and RTI and Rainbow and a URP in Nashville and Got a Groove and all the pressing plants in America, the number was 3 or 4 times that at least. So this is much bigger than they claim it is. And did you see the study done in the UK where it said that people who listen to records are introverted and depressed? Did you see that study? I mean, the desperate. Roy, speak for yourself. Roy. The desperation of the people that don't like what's going on is pretty hilarious.
People listening to those records were British, so yeah, you're right.
That's right.
They didn't tell you the reason why they're depressed.
Did someone else have anything?
I'm just curious, are the most of the machines that you've had and that you all are referencing here were built in the 50s and the 60s and maybe even earlier, and you've had to either refurbish or manufacture by hand machine parts to keep them up and running. Will some of these new presses that these people are making, will they eliminate some of the issues that you're having with all this?
Well, I want to say,
know yet,
I wanted to say this while you keep talking about all these people making, these guy in Italy making new presses, the guy in the Fine Built, the guy in Canada, they talking about new presses. I want to see one make a record, okay?
The one in Italy made a record. You can see it. You go online, you can see it.
Okay.
It made a record. And what's interesting is
I'm not saying that it's not possible.
it doesn't use a
But
boiler
they could-
either. It doesn't use a boiler. They use magnetic convection to melt the plastic.
I'm not
So-
saying it's impossible.
Hearing is just the talk.
Yeah, let's see one make a record. I mean, a good record, a sellable record. And I know it's not going to be easy. And so, this new build, which is just a copy of a Fine Built that Jack White bought and he's been talking about for years now, and one of these days maybe. But, they flew over. Some people flew from America over to watch it work, and they got there and it wasn't even hooked up to a boiler. And they were like, well, here it is. We're like, well, we didn't fly over here to see. You can send us a picture, And they're like, well, we didn't hook, we don't
This is true in Canada, too. I spoke to the Canadian company, Vinyl, V-I-N-Y-L, I think, or V-N-Y-L. They said they were going to invite me up to Toronto to see it work in August, and still haven't been.
It may happen, it's a whole lot.
Let's hope it does, because we need it.
Yeah, no, I mean, but all these.
To answer your question, those presses were made in the 60s, 70s, and even the early 80s. And all the presses that Chad has found from different places in the world, he's had to make tremendous investment to get them to the point where they're making great records again.
It's sad how many were
and
scrapped.
Even,
It's
and
really
even
sad.
with all the money that he's had to invest, it's still a profitable business because so many people, like everyone in this room and millions of people in America and all over the world, want these records.
Well, the thing about when he asked the question that we have more different types of presses probably than anybody. Usually every pressing plant has one brand. The RTI has SMTs. In Europe, Palace has Alpha Tulex. That record industries probably have Alpha Tulex. Those are made in Sweden. And the SMTs were made, they're American made, they're made in Nashville. They're like a Chevy 350. You can buy parts at the parts store. If it breaks, it don't stop running. It runs for 24 hours for 24 years. It's big, it's bulky, it's American, it's just like a Chevy 350. The Tool X was the most modern. It's the smallest. It's the fastest, the most modern, the prettiest. But it's like a BMW. It's always in the shop, you know. And no, Valvo. No, I'm just kidding, Mike.
No,
No, no, no.
I'm a Saab guy. You can say whatever you want about
Saab. I mean, I'm sorry, not Saab. Yeah. So
it. Which has no shop anymore, but that's another story.
So but they're the fastest and they're the prettiest and they're the most modern. They were made in Sweden. And then there's the fine built, which is the oldest that was made in, they're the manual presses, which we're going to make our UHQRs on. They make one record at a time. You make them one at a time, hand press records. Those are
It's a
the
giant
oldest.
waffle iron, essentially.
Yeah, those are the oldest, and that's we got the fine built, the Alpha, the SMT, and then we bought 13 Hamiltons. We went to his backyard in Chicago and found 13. It was 0 degrees, and we went to Luminati's Chicago Pizza, and over pizza we made a deal for 13. We found these. They were in a warehouse on, you know where that bridge is stuck open in Chicago? I don't forget what area, but there's this bridge stuck open, and it was like 0. We had to pay like, you know, all these people to go in this. It was an amazing, like Fremer was talking about a story. It could have been a movie. And they got a forklift stuck in the building trying to get these things out. And I mean, if you drop one, it's toast because they're so heavy. It was a long story, but it was so cool that, you know, I told the guy, I said, hey, listen, you've been having these things here. I says, I'll help you fix them, and I'll tell you, you can fly to Salina. I'll show you everything you need to do and how many millions you're going to have to spend and help you. Or else we can, it was 3 things I told him. The last thing I said, or I can just buy them. And he says, he took a bite of pizza, he looked down, he says, well, this is what I got into him. I said, listen, dude, I said, I'm not going to grind you. I said, I'm either in the morning going to say yes or no, but don't you, between now and then, you can't change your mind. I says, I will either say yes or no in the morning, but you cannot change your mind because I'm going to that hotel and I'm going to crunch numbers like I ain't never crunched before because you're buying just pieces of steel that it's just like, it looks like, when the guys came to help us move it, they thought it was going to the scrap yard. They go, what scrap yard? I said, no, this is liquid gold, man. This is.
Why don't you tell him a story about the presses that ended up on a freight train? Remember?
Oh, well, when Fremer, I mean, not Fremer, Hobson bought them.
This is another amazing story.
Well, some of the presses we had were at EMI Capital. And then they sold them to a place in North Carolina, so it went coast to coast. Then they bought it in North Carolina, took a train back to L.A., so it comes back, and they fell over, and that's a whole long story. But then they were in L.A. for a while, and then they came back to the middle of America, so it went from west to east to west to the exact center.
It's like the plant that's opened in Bordentown, New Jersey. It used to be Hub Serval in New Jersey, a commercial plant. They sold it to some Canadians. They had it for years. They couldn't make it go, and so now they're back in New Jersey, which is good.
Yeah, the presses come from all over, but I don't know that anybody has more variety. Like, and you understand why, because you have to learn about how to run each one, you know, and so where you have to buy different parts. But now we bought Hamiltons, so we have like 4. We even have a Leonard. We have more. It's just really, it's
Do you have
just.
any of those Hamiltons up and running now?
We're getting close. What we're going to do is we're able to take the Hamiltons and make SMTs out of them because you just take the parts, build parts like the SMT and stick it on the Hamilton. But, you know, if anybody, like we have our blues concert, this year will be our 19th one, and on October 22nd we open up the pressing plant in Salina and we show everybody. We'll be cutting direct to disc with Charlie Musselwhite wants to do one, and we
It's
got
a really great concert if you get to it.
Doug Sachs. We bought Doug Sachs' mastering facility, and we built it up from the ground up, changed all the tubes, and we'll be cutting direct disc and plating and pressing, and we show everybody, you know, the pressing
Chad,
plant.
are you having fun?
I've aged a lot, that's for sure.
It would have happened anyway. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's fun, but it's. I mean, Josh was talking about like, you know, if I don't know if we're making money. You know, I mean, we're selling more than we can make, but it just costs so much to buy. Manufacturing is a whole nother. It's not, you know, you're talking like lucky to make 10%. You know, it's not like.
But this has always been a labor of love for everybody. Everybody upstairs in these rooms, you know, they're not doing this for a quick killing. They're doing it because they love it, and they're trying to get by doing it. But it's a labor of love. That's one of the greatest parts about this whole high-end audio industry. That it's mostly people who do it out of love and out of passion and of something that they believe in, and their wives tell them they're crazy, but they do it anyway. So.
You're talking about yourself.
Absolutely. Listen,
Well,
I made my DVD. I borrowed $20,000, and my wife thought I was crazy. And the people I spoke to who do instructional DVD said expect to sell 2,000 copies in 4 years. So I've sold over 16,000 copies, and it's been good. I didn't do it to make money, but I've made a lot of money on it. So it worked out good.
Well, everybody on the panel was country before country was cool. I mean, Matt and his dad was making turntables way before this whole thing, and Michael's been preaching it since the beginning. Got a lot of criticism, a lot of people in digital. What was that magazine? CD Review.
Oh yeah, we
used to.
Unprintable things.
Yeah, they used to. He would be the only guy battling like 100 people picking on him, and you know
He to that.
yeah, he stood his ground. And hey, where are those guys? You know.
Well, one of them, the guy from CD Review or one of those magazines, after he got on my case about 5 years later, he sent me, you can't print this, but you were right. I got
Yeah.
a turntable, and it's the greatest. I have that letter, too. One day I'll print it.
We accept all the people getting into this, but you know when they say, "Oh, we've been supporting vinyl the whole time," I said, "Yeah, dude, you were the first son of a gun I saw running."
Codes are. We knew who they turned.
Yeah, but hey,
And that's good. They came back. That's good. You know.
yeah.
Okay. Is this over? Is it? No. How much? Another hour?
Stories.
Question. Someone told me all the vinyl pellets are coming from Thailand. I don't know if that's...
That's where we get ours, TPC, and it's a huge. What's that? Yeah.
Do we
Yeah.
know why they come from Thailand?
Well, we can get them from other places, but we really like the Thai vinyl. And the guy there's a guy in America. He's from Tennessee, who's actually the chemicals engineer, and he right before vinyl really started, this Thai company, this plastic company, is this chemical plant that's like a city. I mean, it's huge, and they make plastics for PVC. They make plastics for everything. And you think, I know in your mind you might think Thailand, you know, like. It's not sophisticated but this thing is, and they can make. So this guy's a chemical engineer, American guy. He went over there and he struck a deal with him. You know, said, "Let me be the guy in America," and we're not even complaining about the quality. It is the highest quality, and he's still trying to improve things. This guy, I mean, he flies to Salina and he sits there and presses records with us, and he's still trying to improve. The Thai vinyl is great, and we love them because we're not complaining, and they're still trying to improve it. But that's not the only vinyl. Remtech started making it again, like in New Jersey somewhere. There's I forget where else. There's other. There's
And in Thailand, the vinyl fanatics in Thailand are amazing because I was there, and they are way into vinyl, all the people I met. So it's not just that the pellets come from the people in Thailand love records. So.
You see records in record turntables in every store. I was in a regular mall there recently, and I was blown away. Models you'd think, oh, that in America, like, oh, that's so obscure. I'd never see that. It's front and center, like, you know, right next to the standard clothing store and everything, and it's and they love.
Yeah, they're big into vinyl, and the same in the Philippines also. Huge.
all of Asia. Like Matt said, you go to like a mall. Like remember when we used to go to Sam Goody's or Radio Shack in the malls, and they had stereo stores. they still have it like over there, and it's
And
so
the
cool.
demographic is young too. The show in Thailand and in the Philippines, the audience that I spoke to were all young people, because having a good hi-fi is an aspirational thing over there.
It's funny, man, was I didn't see any of your turntables and
All music halls, huh?
my stuff. I didn't see.
That's because you're looking at the cheap stuff that breaks.
Oh.
Okay, hey, listen, we had a,
That gentleman back there had a question, I think.
I had a question about the difference between virgin vinyl and other types of vinyls that are used in terms of the quality of sound.
it's quiet.
Well, virgin vinyl is just, it's, freshly made 100% vinyl that hasn't been used before, And the reason why recycled vinyl, or we call it regrind, has a bad rap is because in the old days, the cheap companies would just regrind, records made in the 50s and 60s and from all these different pressing plants and all these different kinds of vinyl. And they might throw some big pins in there, you know what I mean?
In the 70s, that's what records were made out of, because there was no PVC. The big pens, whatever plastic they could find.
Yeah, and so non-virgin got a bad rap because people weren't putting, but when we regrind, what happens is we use virgin, and then if the record comes out and there's just a smallest scuff and it's humans that are looking at it, that's the good thing, is the human eye looks at it and they flip it over. If there's anything, they put it on the side. Then we'll punch the label out of that center, and then we'll regrind that. Well, yeah, you might not say that's virgin, but it's the virgin vinyl, and it's the same vinyl that we use. We don't mix the vinyls. And I'm not smart enough, or I can't explain it good enough, but it actually, the regrind helps the virgin. It changes the, and it makes it better. They but we still will go like either virgin or 70-30, 60-40,
And there's no reason why a different colored vinyl is worse than.
Oh, yeah, that's a good, the vinyl, in the old days, colored vinyl was shit. You know what I mean? Especially picture discs. Picture discs were the worst. Right. But the colored vinyl was noisy, and it had a bad rap, and it deserved it, But this company in Thailand, because right now, colored vinyl is so hot. We wanted to tell people at first, no, we just do black. We're not stocking all that stuff, man. We, sorry. But, once we started pressing it, and it's quiet,
Yeah,
it's pretty much as good. And we got, I don't know how many different colors, and people are just going crazy on the colors, and they're good. So,
it's part of the fun.
they got better. They just made it better. So, but anyway, virgin vinyl is just vinyl that's brand new that you haven't used before, and regrind or recycled vinyl got a bad rap because people were just getting greedy and just throwing anything and regrinding it.
The word virgin vinyl became a marketing tool that they would put a sticker on a record, just almost like 180 gram became a marketing tool because audiophiles started making these thick, beautiful records and saying how much they weighed and being proud of like using this great material and making a great record. So these other marketers just said they could make 180 gram. Doesn't mean it's good.
It's harder
just,
to make a 180 gram record. It's really hard to make a 180 gram record.
It's even harder to make a 200 gram.
That's even harder.
Oh, well, I won't mention any names, but
Don't be like what I did. It's going to be on camera there.
yeah, it's a good customer, and it was a big band. But, we say 180 gram, and but we say plus or 10% because some records, if they have a lot of dynamics, we can't get it to 180 gram, you know what I mean? Because it's just hard to press. We're going to press defective records if we say, well, all our goal is to make a 180 gram record. It's not going to be, our goal is to make a good record. So some of them came out 166 or something, and they were all bent out of shape, and I'm like, you know, listen, we say in our thing it's plus or 10, and that's within our specs. But
That's more people expecting the impossible in a process that's.
well, we're making them the best record. Would they rather 180 grams of shit or a good damn record, you know? So we made them good records, and so I don't know. It's just there's a lot of interesting things that happen.
Anybody else have anything?
If talking about like new pressings at the stores we find today, if you go back over the decades, let's say a record that came out in the 60s and it's been repressed each decade along the way, how do the new ones compare as you go back over the decades, would you say?
In terms of the vinyl quality or in terms
Yeah,
of.
sound quality?
Well, sound quality depends
In
upon
general.
if the tape is not what it once was, it's not going to sound as good. And there's a lot of that, a lot of tapes.
And many reissues, they didn't go back to the original.
Well, why don't you just talk about the press? Can he answer just like the pressing?
I'll leave it up to you guys. I mean, it just, you know, you see all these labels and different SKUs over the decades. You look at Sgt. Pepper's and you find, 300.
Well, they might have remastered it, you know, so many times, and the mastering is really one of the important. Yeah, just talk. I'll let him.
You know, there were a lot of bad records pressed in the old days and a lot of good records pressed too. So, and all of us, if we're old enough, ended up buying a lot of bad records and a lot of good records. And I think the miracle is that so many good records managed to be pressed back in those days. You know, I think in the 70s there were a lot of bad records because there wasn't any good. There was an oil shortage, so there was a PVC shortage, and you know, pressing records was not high on the demand for what was being done with the oil. In the 60s, there were a lot of great records, and you know, the stuff that came out of EMI and Decca in the 60s was amazing. And I don't know what they did to make it so great, why those presses were so good. But
I think the best of the best that's happening now is better than then.
no,
And
as far as pressing quality, the
yeah,
stuff
and
that comes out of Chad's plant is amazing. In terms of background quiet, it's black background quiet that the 60s records sound almost like noisy by comparison.
the one exception was when Mobile Fidelity was making the JVC Super Vinyl from Japan. Those were probably the quietest vinyl.
And they were not
It's
thick records,
hard.
They were
Right.
120.
They were the quietest, flattest. They were really, really nice. But the recipe, nobody has the recipe. And if you had it, it's toxic stuff. They wouldn't let you use that recipe for vinyl these days anyway. So
You couldn't make it in Mexico. That's how bad it is.
point taken.
Sorry.
So the best of the best now is better. But there's so many things. It's the mastering. Who had the master tape? Who did the mastering? Who did the plating? That's really important. But like Michael said, that there's some good stuff happening. But there's also some crap too.
Like I just
But
heard.
this couldn't have happened if you could just take a regular CD of a regular pop record and take a very poor quality copy on vinyl that wasn't made with love by someone like Chad or Don and play them back to back. You can play the CD on a $1,000 CD player and play that mediocre record on a $300 turntable, and everybody that listens. And I'm not saying people like Michael with golden ears or
I don't have golden
all the
ears. There's no such thing
audiophiles
as
here.
golden ears. I do not have golden ears.
Any human being on earth that wants to sit in front of this system and listen to the CD and the record every time is going to prefer the sound of vinyl.
Yeah,
Every
it's true.
time.
Now, there's Alan Harbeth, who has Alan Shaw, I guess, the Harbeth speakers. He's got a YouTube channel where he says, here's an oscilloscope, and I'm going to play a 1K tone from a CD player. It's perfect. Now I'm going to play a 1K tone on a vinyl record, and it's terrible. This proves, he doesn't say what turntable it was, what cartridge it was, what test record it was, nothing. And this is the pseudoscience that the desperate people that hate this vinyl thing use to try to stop it. Or is that because you're depressed? You know, it doesn't measure as well, you're depressed.
Straw is
What?
You see, he is depressed.
He's depressed, right? So yeah, no, there's something about vinyl, and I know a recording engineer who tries to prove to me that I'm wrong. It's L minus R. It's this amount of separation. So he made a digital file from a master tape and made the separation the same as a record. Does it sound better? He says, and you're right, it does sound better. We did the experiment, and when the amount of separation that's on a record was put on a digital file, it made the music separate from the speaker and make it sound three-dimensional, like you like, but it's not what's on the tape. And I said, I don't care what's on the tape. I care that the end result sounds like real music to me. I don't, because the tape is a work product to make the final product. If the final product is a record that sounds more like three-dimensional space and music being performed in front of me, that's all I care about. Accuracy in the analog world or in the audio world is a joke. There's no such thing as accuracy. Everybody mastering music is using a different loudspeaker, and it's different tastes. So if my taste is different than their taste, what matters most to me is my taste, not their taste.
And the thing that matters is your taste.
That's
and
right.
And if you're happy with the records you're buying, then that's all that really matters.
And you can tune your turntable to make it sound the way you like it with the cartridge and the mat and whatever else you do to make it sound the way you like it. And the people that think that that's wrong because it's not accurate, who cares?
That's actually like one of the selling points, like where we love the fact that forget the measurements, forget everything. You're your own listener. Get your buddy, have your buddy raise and lower the VTA while you sit there till you're like, good, yeah, that's the sound I like.
Right.
I can't tell you what your sound is that you like.
That's right. And that's fine. That's great, actually. It's not that something's wrong with this. It's what's great about it.
There are no absolutes, and it's fun.
And one thing I can tell you is that as you improve your system, as you improve your turntable and your cartridge and your arm and everything else, and it gets better and better and better. And so I've been doing this a long time, and at some point I said, okay, this is as good as it's going to get. But no, I was wrong, because it keeps getting better, and the cartridges get better, and the tone arms get better, and the modern technology applied to this old ancient technology is the most amazing thing that's happening now.
I don't think anyone could have expected rubbing a tiny chip off of a diamond through plastic could make music like this,
No,
as satisfying as it is.
People that made it in the 50s didn't know how good the records were they were making. Well, I can tell you, I used to have a subscription to the New York Philharmonic, and there was a guy that sat next to me every concert, and he was a Harvard-trained lawyer, and he would bring these piles of CDs from Tower Records every time. And one time, I said, you like these CDs? How do you? He says, I love CDs, I hate records. I said, you hate records? He said, I have 7,000 records, and you can have them, but you got to take all of them. I said, I'll take all of them. So I did. I got a whole van full. It was an amazing collection. And then one day he said to me, you know Max Wilcox? He's Arthur Rubinstein's producer. That's Max Wilcox over there. You want to meet Max Wilcox? I said, I would love to meet Max Wilcox, because I have all these RCA living stereos with his name on it. So we go over, and I thought he was going to say, Max, I want you to meet Michael Fremer. But no, he didn't do that. He said, Max, I want you to meet a vinyl guy. He's a vinyl guy. And Max Wilcox stood there and screamed at me for 10 minutes about what an idiot I was for liking vinyl, screaming and yelling. And I just stood there. And when he was done, I said, Max, nice to meet you too. And I walked away. But I mean, just thought it was a funny story I did, because I have nothing else to say about the subject at hand. Any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to pick on Matt a little bit.
Oh, that's so easy. What?
We've been talking a lot about vinyl quality. I wanted to talk a little bit about the hardware quality. And I'm kind of curious where you guys see advancements and innovations going with turntables and cartridges.
Well, a lot of it,
like the 3D arm is something
yes.
that I don't think anybody would have even dreamed up,
Yeah.
20 years ago. But now here it is, and
And well, the 3D arm, and it's realistically, it's my dad's design, but the 3D aspect, that was, and PR people say I shouldn't say this, but it was a happy accident. I was a 3D design teacher. I threw a wild, off-the-wall idea, and when my dad was getting ready to say, that's not a terrible idea. It was like one of those things where it kind of just like went from there. We gave it a try, and a lot of it is trying different things as far as improving upon it, because we tried it. And the first 3D arm we printed looked horrible. It looked disgusting. We wired it up, and my dad's giving me a look like, oh, geez, the money we just wasted doing this crap. And we played it, and we were like, whoa. Well, we don't know what this is yet, but this is something. And then it would let us go down the path with that. But as far as improved turntables, and not just VPI with all companies, there's better CNC ability. There's better, and then with VPI, as far as with the quality of our tables, we are doing it on a larger scale of tables, where it would be manufacturing thousands of platters instead of...
That's the big thing. The whole vinyl resurgence has been an opportunity for all the companies making turntables.
Yep.
To
and
produce better
cartridges and
turntables,
phono
better
stages
cartridges,
and everything.
and it's all happening.
So with the partnership of a company that's going to be announced probably in the next 2 weeks or so. Their expectation is to sell 1,500 turntables with our
It's
help.
Kraft Foods, by the way, which
Kraft
is amazing.
Foods.
They're going to
Kraft
include
Foods.
a turntable with every box of macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, and actually with this company, their plan is to put records, the things we were mentioning before as far as different avenues, and it's going to go in all of their stores that have nothing to do with the hardcore audiophile. It's the kind of place that you guys already go to get a muffin, to get a cup of coffee, to look at a watch, and then now all of a sudden there's going to be records readily available.
All right, guys, we got the signal.
They know.
Yeah.
We're done for the day, but
Well,
we'll
thank
see
you
you
all
all
for
next
coming.
year.
Thank you.
If we're here next year, if I'm here, I could be sued by them.
And check out
Thank you very much.
and look to the New York Times in the next couple of weeks, guys, for hopefully a big thing for the industry.
Outstanding. That's great. Thank you all.